2 weeks ago was the 25th anniversary of the Sega Dreamcast, and I wanted to quickly do a video about my memories with the console, be it a very short window of time, but it was time nonetheless, you know what I mean? And this was back in, I want to say 2002, and from what I remember, that might be the year that it was discontinued, right? So they weren't really producing games, and if they were, I don't even know what the final games for the Dreamcast were, but that shit did not last very long, right? So this was like the early summer of 2002, maybe a week or two after school ended. We would always go to my dad's house every other weekend to go stay with him because my mom and dad were separated at the time. And, you know, every time we went over there, my dad would take us to the flea market, you know, early in the morning. You know, Mexican dads, like, when it comes to early mornings, those motherfuckers are up early, right? Right before the sun is up to go do something. It don't even have to be work, just to, you know, go out and do mandado or whatever the fuck it is that they do. You know what I mean? So me and my sisters get up early to go to the flea market. And this flea market, I'm telling y'all, it is huge, okay? At least it's the biggest one here. And it's called the Cherry Auction, just because, you know, I live in the valley, a bunch of produce and shit is being grown around. And as you can guess, Cherry Auction is because there's a bunch of cherry trees around, right? And this place is just packed every single Saturday, man. It never fails. If it happens to rain, there's even people still showing up. You know what I mean? Like, everybody loves it there. I certainly did when I was a kid. You know what I mean? There was everything that you could have ever wanted. Not only do you get to, like, you know, get churros. They even had little Chinese food, lunch trucks, tacos, whatever you wanted, man. Snow cones, you know what I mean? Especially during the summer. But one thing that really intrigued me the most was toys and video games. And that's what led me to this one guy. You know, he had a cool little setup. It wasn't extravagant like the other people around, like the way, but he had a cool little blue tarp. The tables looked nice and clean. He had little rags or whatever on it to kind of give it an aesthetic or whatever, selling different types of items. It wasn't necessarily one thing only. But one thing that did catch my eye was the Sega Dreamcast. And looking at this on this table just made me feel like I'm looking at something rare. You know what I mean? This fucking machine seems to me like it's a white whale, you know, but all I seen was a console and two controllers. There was like CD cases next to it, but I wasn't aware that those were the games, right? So I started thinking, okay, how am I gonna ask my dad, you know, like, I really want this, like, you know, it's not like I need it. And my dad is usually the type to be like, oh, do you need it? You know what I mean? So my dad comes around finally, and I work up the courage to finally tell him, hey, pa, está bien si me puedes comprar este juego, you know, if he could buy me this game. And, you know, my dad looks at me and he looks at it and he's like, what is it? You know what I mean? And I was like, oh, es un Sega Dreamcast. And, you know, there's two things my dad doesn't know. He doesn't know English, and he doesn't know shit about video games, right? But that guy who's selling all this stuff knows this. And so, you know, he's on seller mode, right? He knows that this kid is hooked. He wants that video game. So he's telling my dad in Spanish, no, este juego aquí es un Sega Dreamcast y es el mejor y el Xbox y el PlayStation 2. And you know what I mean? He's like saying all this shit. My dad has no idea what this dude is talking about. At this point, he's just like yapping, right? So my dad's listening to him, but then he's looking at me and he's asking me questions. And, you know, I have no idea what the hell the console is. I've never played it before, you know? I just know that there's Sonic Adventure on the console. That's it. And so we finally get down to the price range, and the guy wants to sell it to my dad for $200. My dad looks at me and he's like, no, está loco este güey, vámonos. You know what I mean? He's like, no, está muy caro eso, vámonos. And so I was like, fuck, you know, like 200 is a lot, you know what I mean? I think $5 is a lot as a kid. 200 is like, you know what I mean? So, you know, we start to walk away, and the guy's like, no. He's like, te lo vendo por 150, 150. And so, like, my dad still, you know, my dad is good at this shit. You know, my dad still kind of he stopped, and then he kind of thought about it. He's like, nah, let's go, you know. And then he's like, no, está bien, come on. And then the guy, you know, out of desperation, you know, which sucks because he was a nice guy. I would have just gave him the 150 if it was me as an adult. You know, he's like, no, he's like, 125, 125. And so my dad, you know, that makes my dad turn around because, you know, he just got that shit pretty damn low, you know. And then the guy's like, he's like, that's as low as I can go, pretty much, right? So my dad's like, okay, you know what I mean? If you like this game, he tells me, si te gusta este juego, te lo compro. Sí, pues sí me gusta, you know what I mean? Like, I never played it, but yeah, I like it, right? My dad pays them. The guy puts it all in this, like, those heavy-duty black bags. Not the trash bags, but they're like these store bags. And the liquor stores used to have them. They don't have them no more. They use the cheap ones. But, yeah, so he puts everything in there. And I didn't know, aside from, like, the console 2 controllers, it came with 3 games. Sonic Adventure, Rippin' Riders, and Crazy Taxi, right? So I thought I was just getting the console and I was gonna have to go to a store and buy the game. That's kind of what my other agenda was, you know, after I got the console with my dad. Hey, can we go to the store and buy 1 game? But it came with 3, so I wasn't tripping. So a couple hours later, we get done, we go to the car and we head to my dad's house. And the whole time that we're driving there, I'm just looking inside the bag and looking at the cases. Unfortunately, the games didn't have the cover art, the manuals, you know what I mean? So all I had was the original case. I can look at the back, read the description, look at the pictures, and look at the disc. That's all I can do, but that was enough for me. That just got me hyped. You know what I mean? I would have preferred to read the book or whatever, but hey, it is what it is. So we finally get there, and the living room TV is never occupied, right? My dad has a TV in his room, and that's mostly where he would spend his time with his old lady and his like 1 or 2 year old kid. So nobody was ever in the living room, which was cool with me because I'm hooking that bitch up right there and boom. It's a pretty sizable TV, probably about 25, 23 inches or something like that. So after hooking it up, I'm debating what game to play first, right? My first instinct was Sonic. I'm like, I'm gonna play that one first. But I was like, nah, you know what? I'll save that one for last. You know, I like to have my dessert later. So my focus was either on Rippin' Riders or Crazy Taxi. I don't know shit about snowboarding games, and I had no idea what this Crazy Taxi was. You know, I've never seen the arcade cabinet before, so I have no idea what this game is about. I just assume you're a taxi driver taking people to, you know, different places, which isn't far off, but it's way cooler than that, right? So I think to myself, well, I'll save this driving game for later and I'll play this snowboarding game first, because I knew already that I'm not going to spend much time on it. Like, it'd be a miracle for this shit to blow my mind, right? So I take out the disc, I clean it a little bit, I put in the Dreamcast, and then of course that little intro. Super nostalgic. I just remember seeing that for the first time and it just gave me this warm feeling, these little butterflies, you know what I mean? Then I finally get to the game and I don't last maybe 10 minutes with the motherfucker. I'll tell you that right now. I just wasn't a fan. I didn't like the dull graphics. It felt clunky, stiff at the same time. It just wasn't a fun game to introduce me to the console. Right away I was like, yeah, this game ain't it, you know, so I put it to the side. I'm telling you, I didn't last very long with it. I just remember playing it. I might have gave the controller to my sister even to try it, and I don't think she even had fun with it. So we were like, yeah, snowboarding, get out of here, you know what I mean? It blows. Rippin' Riders is not a game that I can recommend because it sucks. So after that failure, I was a little hesitant on Crazy Taxi because, like I said, I assume you're just a taxi driver going through the city, dropping off people, picking them up, and all that shit, you know. And when I put the game in, and when you're introduced right away to the fucking guy that says, hey, 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 it's Crazy Taxi time, or whatever the hell he says, you know what I mean? Then you're kind of like, oh, let's go. Let's have some fun. It's like, yes, let's have some fun, please. You know, and I don't even bother to go through the options or anything. I just do like the free ride and boom, you know, I just keep pushing A until I get to like the game, you know. So I didn't even go through the scroll the characters, none of that shit. I just chose Axel, boom, that's it. That's what I'm going with. And one of the greatest ways to start a game is with that banger of The Offspring's All I Want. Yeah, 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 yeah. Da, na, 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 na. You know, and like right away, that should get you hooked. I don't know what it is about Crazy Taxi. It just brings you in. Just like every other arcade game that I've played, it's always drew you in. And that was just like one of those memorable moments. Memorable moments? Is that a contradictory thing to say? But it was just like a special moment in time when I finally realized that this console was the shit because of this game. You know what I mean? Like I said, I had no idea what this game was about. I had very low expectations going in a few minutes ago. And now that I'm playing this, my expectations like exceeded everything that I could have possibly thought in my 10-year-old mind. You know what I mean? And even my sister was jamming, you know, so I passed the controller to her, of course, as she's playing. And we were literally stuck on that game for probably about an hour and a half. You know, Sonic what? You know what I mean? I wasn't even thinking about that. I was too busy doing this back and forth until you can only play so much before you get tired of it. And you're like, okay, you know, let's move on to the next thing. But I played different versions of Crazy Taxi, the GameCube and the PS2 version. But for some reason, the Dreamcast just felt a whole lot more natural. And I think it's just the fact that the Dreamcast was made with arcade games in mind, right? So maybe that's why it felt so good. But nonetheless, bro, it's one of like one of my most cherished games of all time. Might be one of my top 10 personal favorite games of all time. And of course, the piece de la resistance, or so what I thought, was Sonic Adventure. So when I finally got to it, I was hyped. You know, I'm rubbing my hands together. I'm like, oh, I played Sonic before at my friend's house like a couple of years ago. Like, I want to try this out. You know what I mean? And I liked Sonic Adventure from what I could remember. I wish I can tell y'all. I really wish that I can explain to you the feeling that I got when I first played Sonic Adventure. For some reason, that part is cloudy, but I remember Crazy Taxi a whole lot more. And Rippin' Riders was just like a little moment that I barely remembered. But, you know, I just remember not liking it. But Sonic Adventure being like the biggest like game of that console, the biggest character of that console, I wish that I can tell y'all that I was super hyped when I seen this and I seen that. The only thing that I can think of is when I turned it on and like that whole beginning animation, you know, when it shows the water and the city landscape. I remember being blown away by that because like I said, I'm coming off the N64 and everything is like, you know, all fucking like polygon weird, you know, but looking at this, you know, animation as it scrolls into the city and seeing how Sonic looks and all that, like, it's a beautiful, beautiful game. So there's something about it just never brought me back to it, and I kind of feel silly of just letting it go. You know, I'm pretty sure I beat the game when I was a kid. I can't really attest to that, but I'm pretty sure I did, and I just never went back to it. Maybe I didn't like it, I don't know, but Sonic Adventure was supposed to be like the big deal for me, and it wasn't, you know, and I can't understand why. But anyway, those were the 3 games that I got with my Dreamcast. And like I said, I was happy as hell, even though one of them was a dud. I was just super excited to finally get the next level, or so what I thought. You know, I had no idea that this thing was being discontinued, if I'm being honest with you. I wasn't up on video game stuff like that. Yeah, man, but for the rest of that summer, I did play a few more games. There was a couple that I rented from Hollywood Video. And at this time, you know, now I'm looking at it in hindsight, but as a kid, I didn't realize. But, you know, I'm thinking about it. Hollywood Video, when I went to go rent some Dreamcast games, there was like this small shelf, like very small, of just Dreamcast games. It was Sonic, and then there was Crazy Taxi. I already had those, obviously. And there was a couple of other ones, but there was everything else, like PS2, Xbox. I think GameCube was starting to come out that year. So there was like a bunch of other stuff going on. But one game that did catch my eye, which I'll explain why it's dumb I rented in the first place, was NFL Blitz 2000. And NFL Blitz is probably up there with my top 10 most cherished games of all time, next to Crazy Taxi, just because I put so much time into it. You know what I mean? Like, I have so many memories of going back and forth with my cousins, and I'm always trying to, you know, beat a season, and I could never get to the fucking end. I could never beat the last few teams in the season. I just couldn't, man. I had a hard time, but it just never stopped me because the game is just so fun and engaging, right? But anyway, so I rent NFL Blitz 2000 and I take it home, which is stupid because I already had the first NFL Blitz on the N64. And it's kind of like, well, why would you rent that and that? It's practically the same game. Mostly because I wanted to see if it played different, right? And obviously it did, because they're 2 different controller sets. The graphics look a whole lot nicer, but there really wasn't much of a difference. So in a way, I felt like I wasted a rental. But at the same time, I really didn't give a shit because, you know, it's NFL Blitz. I love this game. So I spent the weekend just playing that. But, you know, now that I'm thinking about it, I could have rented something else that was there. There was probably Blue Stinger. I'm pretty sure there was Sonic Adventure 2. There had to have been some other things. I don't know why I went for that one, but I did. It was probably like this comfort feeling that I was looking for. And NFL Blitz was that comfort. And the next game that I rented a couple of weeks down the line was Power Stone 2. I had no idea what Power Stone is. I've never played the first one. I've never seen any pictures of it. It just sounded cool. And then looking at the case and everything, I was like, okay, you know, this looks like a fun fighting game. And boy, was I right, because Power Stone 2 is legit one of the Dreamcast best games. I will stand by that. I haven't played every single Dreamcast game, but I can tell you right now, it just has to be regarded. I think it is regarded as one of the best because it just is. Arena fighter, brawler fighter, I don't know what the hell they call it, but it's a fighting game. And I just love the fact that you can pick up items, you can rip beams off fucking ceilings and whack the other person with it, throw tables. Like, it's just so chaotic, man. And it just really brings you in. I have 2 controllers, so of course I would invite my cousins over. Hey, yo, you guys need to come over here right now and try this shit. You know what I mean? Or if we were going over to my grandma's house or to my cousins, I'm bagging that bitch up and vamonos, let's go. I'm gonna show y'all what's good. But yeah, those were my memories with the Dreamcast. I feel like I was about a year or 2 late, you know, so I didn't really get to experience it in its prime, which was cool with me because, like I said, it was my second console. The first one I had was the N64, then it was a Dreamcast, and later in that year, I want to say, you know, I know it was Christmas, I got the PS2. You know, so once I got the PS2, the Dreamcast was obsolete to me. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put it away, and I just never touched it again. And I wish I had it here, y'all, to show y'all like the games and all that, but unfortunately, it got stolen or lost in transition or something like that. You know what I mean? Because we moved a lot as kids, and you know, we always had to hurry up and move shit. So, you know, RIP to my Dreamcast, wherever the hell you are, the 3 games. But the memories, they're all up here, man. And I just remember it being a special moment, and that's why the Dreamcast for me holds a special place in my heart, and it's very cherished. In those 3 games in particular, even though like Rippin' Riders, I didn't really give a shit for, I have a love for. Sonic Adventure, which I don't remember a lot of, I do have an appreciation for it because, like I said, it was one of the first games that I played, and you know, when you're a kid at that age and you're not very knowledgeable on video games, any video game is special. You know what I mean? But those are my memories with the Dreamcast, and I really love to hear what your memories with the console is, whether it be just playing at a cousin's house, or if you did own one, did you buy it on 9/99/99, whatever the hell that date was? You know what I mean? Do you remember reading it in magazines, getting all excited for it? You know, for me, it was just like a very unexpected thing, and I enjoyed it a lot. But, you know, let me know what y'all think at the bottom. So muchas gracias, fam, for coming through and listening to your boy ramble on. Hopefully it wasn't too boring. And if you haven't yet, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Smash that notification bell as well. And just stick around, man. Make sure you have those noties on. I'll be dropping streams soon, and hopefully I'll be working on some new stuff that I've been, you know, playing around with. So muchas gracias once again, and I will catch y'all in the next one. All right, deuce.